Hey everybody, me Joe from Legend Hobby. So today on Hanger Time, we're going to be checking out the Legend Hobby CG'r Stand. This is the perfect setup for anything you need to do as far as having your airplanes displayed, or if you're working on them. It's fully adjustable, and it also functions as a CG stand. So stay tuned, here we go. So as you can see, the Legend Hobby CG'r Stand is fully adjustable. All you need to do is loosen your wing nuts, and you can move this around however you need it. Each arm is adjustable. This can be used on your stand for either displaying or working on your models. This can also be used as a CG stand. And then if you need to, you can also lock it down by inserting your screws and your wing nuts in the middle so that it doesn't move. You can adjust this up to larger airplanes. You can also make it so that your length is adjustable by making your dowel rods removable. You can either put in longer dowel rods, or you can slide it in if you need to. However you need to adjust it for whatever size plane you're working on. This will be the perfect addition to your hangar. So let's take a look how this thing goes together. Okay, so let's get started on your CG stand and getting it assembled. So a couple of things you're going to need. I like to use wood glue for this type of thing because wood glue gives me a slow cure, and it also is sandable if I spill a little out on the edges. I also like to use some wax paper. I'm going to assemble this on top of wax paper, so if I do have a little bit of spillage, then I don't get that all over my bench, and it makes for an easy cleanup. I try to use the glue sparingly just so I don't have a lot of extra glue leaking out all over the place, but you can simply wipe it off with some paper towel and sand if necessary. Now the first couple of pieces that you're going to put together are going to be your base doublers, your horizontal base, and your vertical body. Now these are all going to make a 3-part sandwich, and what I recommend doing is test fitting everything before you get the glue out, because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to start having trouble with the glue while you're putting this together. So I like to go in, the Legend Hobby logo will go out, or down in this case. Get everything lined up like it should be, and just check to make sure, number one, that you're familiar with the parts, and number two, that everything looks like it fits correctly. Now one of the recommendations I have is to put the dowels in here to get these lined up. So with your dowels, what I would do is I would test fit them first. Okay, now I would recommend making these removable anyways, because it makes for easy storage, and it also lets you expand the stand for larger airplanes. Now I will teach you a little trick here. So you saw that dowel went in there relatively easy, and that's because I've pre-sanded the end of it a little bit to make it so it fits. The non-sanded end, you'll see, would be a bear. It doesn't really want to fit in there. And what I do with that is I go ahead and I take the dowel and I go ahead and I chalk it up in my drill. And then I simply take some sandpaper and run my drill. And this way you get a good sand on the end of your dowel rod. Now be careful not to take too much off. It can be a little cumbersome because you're going to have to take it on and off your drill each time. It's still really tight. There's plenty of room on these because of the swelling of the wood, both in the light ply and the dowel rod. You should be able to take some off of here without issues. Just make sure you don't take too much of it at a time. You want to make sure you test it back and forth to make sure you're getting a good fit, so you don't take too much off. That's just about got it. I'm going to take off just a little bit more. It's still just a little bit snug for my liking. I'm actually going to make mine so that I can disassemble this when I need to store it. So I want these dowel rods to slide in and out easily because I am going to be taking mine apart. I think that's got it. Yeah, so see, I've still got a nice snug fit. Nothing's going to move anywhere. It's down there good. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that same process for these other two holes. And I'm going to line up all three of my dowels so that when I get ready to put my wood glue in, I can put the dowels in there to make sure everything's lined up good. Weight it down or clamp it, pull the dowel rods out, and then you'll know that your pieces are all correctly aligned. We're going to do this for both sides. Once you get both sides done, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start getting the glue down to glue our pieces together. I wouldn't go crazy, and what I would try to do is I would try to avoid getting anything too close to the holes, because that's just something you're going to want to clean out before you put your dowel rods in there. The key to this whole thing is to using the dowel rods to line it up, but you don't want to glue the dowel rods in at this step for sure. So first of all, you're going to go ahead and put on your horizontal. And you can just lay that down in there. Kind of squish it around a little bit. Make sure you get good glue coverage. And you can see I'm already getting a little bit of glue down inside my hole, so I'm going to clean that out. Go ahead and put the vertical on. Now you're going to go ahead and put the glue down for your other part of your base. Again, no need to go super crazy with this glue because it's going to spread itself out pretty decently. Okay, now what I'm going to do, because I can see that I'm starting to get a mess here, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down just to get some of that excess glue out of the way. So now that I've got everything in place here, I'm going to insert my dowel rods. These are just going to be in there for alignment at this time. Make sure I get them all in there nice and solid. And then I'm going to clamp this off so it doesn't move. Once you get all your glue put in place, you can go ahead and get this clamped up and let it dry, and then you're going to perform the exact same process on the other side. One thing I do like to do is I do like to take a little Q-tip and run down inside these holes, so that way I'm sure I don't get any excess glue down in there later, because that's going to ruin my fitment that I already set up with my dowel. Okay, so now that you've got both bases put together and ready to go, remember this is a 3-part sandwich. We lined these all up with our dowels, and these are both good to go. The next step is to go ahead and find your side rails, and you're going to place them, there's 2 pieces to the side rail, so you're going to have the base piece and then the rail piece, and that's going to go in there just like that. Make sure you line it up all the way across. Now I will tell you, with the tolerances being so tight, I did find it necessary to sand these lightly And then what I did is I just sand them down lightly so that I make sure I get a good fit. You'll find the tolerances from the laser are pretty tight, and the directions say to, you know, tap them down. I prefer to sand them so they fit. They're still tight. You want to go easy with the sanding, and all you need to do is sand the tab piece just a little bit, just enough so that you can get it down in there without having to force it too much. And then if you have to, you can tap them down to get them to fit fully if they're not seated all the way. So I'm sitting here working on these rails, and I wanted to show you guys my process for this. This one I already have glued. What it says in the manual is to tap these down, and because the laser cut parts are so tight, so the tolerances are very small, what happens is this wood swells. Okay, once it goes into different types of humidity, different types of heat, this will actually swell. And now these don't want to fit very good. So I don't recommend tapping them down because you're just going to strip this top layer of ply off. Let me show you how I fix that. So you can see here I've already got these done. These are all ready to go. Perfectly fit, perfectly tight, no issues at all. And this one is not going to want to fit. So how I do this is I take a little block of wood and I glue down. On this particular case I've got some 160 grit paper. You don't want to go too much grit because you're going to take too much off. You got to be careful when you sand something like this so you don't mess up your fit around the bottom to the from the horizontal to the vertical base. So all I really do is I concentrate on the two tabs. So with the 160 grit on a block of wood, this way you get a nice straight sand, and then you just slowly work these down. Now I'm holding this at a little bit of an angle, so I'm not sanding the top of the rail at all. I'm only concentrating down here on the tabs for the horizontal rail. And what you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure you get both sides. You want to sand these as evenly as you possibly can. And you're just going to sand these down. I like to do just a little bit at a time, and then I come and I check my fit. You can see that's already just a little bit better. So while you're sanding these again, you're going to want to do both sides at the time, and you're going to do them nice and easy. So start off slow, sand for a few, and then flip them over and do the same thing. And then check your fit. It's a little bit time consuming to do it that way, but in the end, as you can see here, you will end up with a perfect fit. And it's a simple, easy fix. With a piece like this, you're not going to want to go overly crazy with the glue. And I find it easy just to go into the recess on the tabs, because your tabs will go down. So this will be the part that touches the bottom of the rail. And I would just go in here. I wouldn't go nuts right here with glue, just because it's going to make for crazy cleanup. And it doesn't take very much with these smaller pieces. You go ahead and put these in place. Check to make sure that they are seated fully down. And what I do while the glue is still wet is I just take a paper towel and I run right down the edge so that I get a nice uniform fit. This actually makes a small little fillet that goes between the upper piece and the lower piece, just to help you get better surface retention. And clean up all the extra while it's wet is a whole lot easier. And then you'll want to leave that set. If you'd like, I'm probably going to place one of my 1, 2, 3 blocks up here, just to make sure that it stays put like that. And those will hold those in place, and then you can go on ahead and do the rest of them the exact same way. Okay, so now that we're done with all the gluing, we can go ahead and assemble these parts for our CG'r stand. You have your pivot rails and you have your side rails. What you're going to want to do, I'm going to make sure that the laser cut triangle is facing down. bring the screws up through the bottom. Place in a washer. This is to make sure you have some space and your parts don't bind. Place in a side rail. Make sure that you line up the notch with the top of the side rail. Place on another washer. Do that for both sides. Then place your other pivot block. Then a washer. Then a wing nut. And if everything's correct, you should have full range of motion where you can loosen up your screws and pull these out. Go clear up to 90. Just like that. So those are both ready to go. So now it's just a matter of attaching the top to the base. Line it up and put your screw through. Add your wing nut. Then you can add your dowels. And your CG stand is complete. So that's about it for the Legend Hobby CG'r Stand. You can pick yours up over at legendhobby.com. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more. Thank you very much and have a legendary day.